Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another edition of World Talks here on TVP World. I'm your host, Benjamin Lee, and please join me and my guests on this next interview. In the escalating information war around Ukraine, every word exchanged between Washington, Moscow, and Kyiv is weaponized. From conflicting depictions of prisoner exchanges to the latest Trump-Putin phone call framing Kyiv's drone strike as terrorist actions, the narratives diverge sharply. Now, what does the U.S.'s role in shaping this discourse mean for truth, influence, and diplomacy? Joining us on TVP World is Sergei Erofeev, a Rutgers University sociologist and expert on state communication, propaganda, and cultural contestation. Sir, and welcome to TVP World.
Hello, Ben. Good to be back with you.
Now, we're trying to decipher all these competing narratives around recent Trump-Putin phone calls, as well as the prisoner exchange between, of course, Ukraine, Russia, and the United States. Can you first help us understand what you think the real story is behind the Trump-Putin phone call, and what are the parties trying to portray in order to align with their own interests?
Well, Trump is a real gift to Mr. Putin. He helps him to break the isolation he found himself in after the beginning of this war. And of course, what helps tremendously is this cultural specifics of Trump's behavior. But talking about Trump and talking about Kyiv, we should not forget two things. First of all, in a war situation like that, both sides play certain propaganda games. Even the side whom you consider to be angels, playing similar games to the side which you hold as the devil. Ukraine has to participate in this information war, but like the kinetic war was started by Putin, the information war was also started by him. We should not forget that. And this is the area where he really hopes that he will play the upper hand. And he's manipulating Trump. And the most recent events, such as showing how Putin is open and kind to return the dead bodies of Ukrainian soldiers to Ukraine. This is another manipulation. So this should be understood pretty well, because we have been observing Putin's behavior since a long time ago. And we should remember that we are facing someone who has the advantage of behaving not in a civilized way when everybody else has to be civilized. So it's like a street hooligan who is surrounded by A-grade students, but they don't have a knife, but he does. And again, as I can repeat, Trump is very helpful here because he's also breaking out of these civilized frameworks. So Putin is definitely in certain advantaged position, thanks to Trump now, to intensify his information war, his propaganda games, and the situation with an exchange of fallen soldiers and those who are still alive, but according to Istanbul talks, these are those under 25 years old and those who are very ill and wounded should be exchanged. So Putin is currently in a very funny situation. Well, he puts us in a very funny situation. Imagine, Ben, if you and I agreed to go to dinner one night, and then I suddenly appear in one of the restaurants and you are not there. And then I invite journalists and I say, look, this guy didn't show up. But that guy didn't even know that I was going there. So that's a very characteristic moment of this type of behavior.
Right. There's a lot at play here, and I think, like you mentioned, Russia's also trying to play into this narrative to muddy the water as well. On that, we have a soundbite from President Zelensky himself talking about the situation. So let's take a look at it, and hopefully you can help us dissect what he meant.
Today and yesterday, I spoke with Defense Minister Umerov, with the head of Defense Intelligence Service Budanov, and with the head of the Security Service of Ukraine Malyuk. Ukraine continues to do everything possible to ensure the release of our prisoners and the return of our fallen Ukrainian soldiers. Unfortunately, we still do not have complete lists from Russia for 1,000 people plus, as we agreed in Istanbul. That is, the Russian side, as always, in its usual spirit, is trying to play some dirty political and information game in these matters. It is important that there is a result. It is important that people return home. We believe that we will be able to continue the exchange track, and we are doing everything for this.
So here Zelensky mentioned dirty political information games, and I'm curious of what is the ultimate goal of trying to muddy the water, especially when it comes to this prisoner exchange and the whole returning Ukrainian body situation.
There is always a Matryoshka doll, wooden dolls, the Russian souvenir, one within the other. So what we see is the surface of events and the surface of intentions and motivations. But deep there is a core. So the whole talk about this exchange is serving the task of Mr. Putin to continue this dragging war of attrition. This is his plan B. After he failed with his plan A, the blitzkrieg on Kyiv and quickly taken down the Ukrainian government and sovereignty, he has to drag on and on and on, because this is what helps his main goal. The goal of this war is not territorial conquest. It's only the veneer. It's only the pretense. It's only the impression management, as we say in our scientific language. So the true goal, which is the inside little doll, the Matryoshka doll, is the absolutely deadly desire of Mr. Putin to stay in power. That's why he started this war. So he wants to do anything, and he will manipulate Mr. Trump, and he will manipulate public opinion around the world in order to stay in power. Because otherwise, the internal processes in Russia will be very dangerous for him. They will want to change the leaders of the country. They will not further tolerate the corruption and the lies. And the war is the absolute ultimate and most fundamental means for Mr. Putin to stay in power. And we shouldn't forget about that.
All right. Well, we've spoken to people who are more optimistic about Trump's negotiation method, and the metaphor that we got is if you're speaking to a crazy person who's got a hand on a grenade and has pulled a pin out, if you want to talk them down, you can't use a very strong rhetoric, meaning that, well, a lot of Republicans are saying that the rhetoric that Donald Trump is using towards Vladimir Putin is one that could eventually result in any sort of diplomatic result. Do you think that take is perhaps a little bit too lenient on the Russian president and perhaps would give him more space to maneuver when it comes to this diplomatic space? Or do you think it is a necessary type of evil in order to actually get any negotiation done?
Well, with Mr. Trump, one should understand that he doesn't love anyone very much. He doesn't hate anyone very much. He's a typical narcissistic character who loves himself. And there is a fundamental difference between Mr. Putin and his motivations and Mr. Trump and his motivations. Mr. Putin is completely driven by fear. And all the other motivations are secondary to that, like, for example, being driven by revenge to those who offended him. So fear is number one, revenge is number two. It's all very archaic. With Mr. Trump, we also see a kind of onslaught of archaic cultural structures on the structure of modernity with its checks and balances, democracy, liberties, and international order. So Mr. Trump is not driven by the same kind of fear as Mr. Putin. He is driven by his showmanship. So he wants to be loved. He's not so much afraid of being raped in prison and then, hung and drawn and quartered like Mr. Putin is afraid of. Trump knows perfectly well that he is in the center of the show and he wants to be in the limelight. And exactly for that, and not for the peaceful solution of some conflict somewhere, he's doing anything to attract public attention. So he has a number of offers to the American public. First of all, he wants to improve the economic situation of the Americans, or he says that he wants, and he proposes certain things, which in fact may just do the opposite to the American economy. He wants more security for his country. or he says that he wants more security for his country. And that's why he's introducing these draconic measures regarding immigration, for example. And he wants to be seen around the world very similar to Emperor Nero of Rome, carrying around his musical instruments and singing to wide audiences, and being seen as almost a godly figure which brings peace and prosperity. So he talks about peace, and the number one item on his peace list is, of course, to stop the war between Russia and Ukraine. It's not that he wants that peace. He wants to use that factor. He used to use the respective rhetoric in order to be in the limelight, be admired by Americans, be admired by other people. That's his main purpose. And this goes very well with Putin's playbook. And this helps Putin to manipulate Trump. He is the one who can praise Trump, maybe not always directly, unlike some other Western leaders. So he wants to be praised. Putin knows how to manipulate Trump. And he's dragging also the peace negotiations or ceasefire negotiations, because he doesn't want to end this war, because the war is actually the main instrument for him to stay in power.
Right, that's a very good point here. This narrative warfare might actually just undermine diplomatic progress or even risk further escalation. But in the meantime, thank you so much for your input and insight. Really appreciate it, and thanks for being with us on TVP World.
Thank you, Ben.
Cheers. And thank you for tuning into this edition of World Talks. But for more news, update, and commentary, please stay tuned to TVP World.